Hey, it's been a while since I've been on this channel. I just finished my second playthrough of Hollow Knight Silksong. I love that game. I think it's great. I originally played the first Hollow Knight back in 2023, so I only had to wait 2 years for the sequel instead of like the 5 or 7 everyone else did. And it is every bit as good as I was hoping it would be. I don't know if it's better than the original Hollow Knight. I'd have to play that one again, but for now I can at least settle on every bit as good as the original Hollow Knight. And now that I know this game pretty well, I've done all the challenges that don't ultimately just boil down to busy work. I wanted to make some tier lists to sort of organize my thoughts. I've never done a video like this before, like a sort of screen recording where it's very casual and I'm making a tier list, but I wanted to try it out for this because I at least know Silksong fairly well now and I wanted to talk about it on my channel. So there are going to be 3 different tier lists: the crests, the areas, and then the bosses. And the individual rules for each tier list, I'll tell you on a need-to-know basis, but just from like a top-down perspective. 1, these are all very subjective to me and my own experience with Hollow Knight Silksong. So if you don't like that, make your own tier list. I found all these templates online. I'm literally just browsing the internet right now. There are ads. I didn't pay for any of this. So yeah, you can do that. And also, these are going to be rated in reference to each other. So there is always going to be something in the bottom tier. That doesn't necessarily mean I think it's bad. It's just the least good out of everything that's being presented. All right, so let's start out with the crests. With crests, I'm trying to take into consideration everything that the crest does. I am the type of player who mostly just uses the needle. I don't use a whole lot of tools. I don't use a lot of silk skills. It's mostly just the needle, so that's going to be a big part of how it feels. But I'm also going to try to take everything into consideration. Like, if I had to do an entire run-through of Silksong using only this crest, how well would I fare? And I guess there's no better way to start than the one crest where you could realistically do that, which is Hunter. Hunter is a pretty good crest all around. It's clearly based on the moveset that Hornet had in Silksong. For the most part, this is like a very standard, easy to pick up kind of crest, but then we have the downward aerial attack, or the pogo, as a lot of people in the fanbase call it. It is a stall and fall that goes at an angle, and that is not at all like the down air in Hollow Knight, which was a like quick swipe directly downwards. There is a lot to get used to in that regard. And for like the non-standard pogos, this is the easiest one to get used to, but there is still some things you need to account for that you don't normally have to account for. It's not just like the angle it sends you or the timing. There's also the fact that it matters which way you're facing. And there's also the fact that the hitbox is very skinny. So for example, if a boss is dashing at you and you try to hit them from above, it's a lot more likely you're gonna miss, and you need to pay more attention to your timing than you would for something like Witch or Reaper. And I also want to mention that for my first playthrough, I mostly had a main and stuck with it, but for my second playthrough, I did make an effort to try all the crests, at least get a feel for them. I did use Hunter a lot in my second playthrough, and overall, I would say I'm torn between A and B, because for the most part, it is a very user-friendly pick-up-and-play kind of crest. But that downward aerial is certainly a thing, certainly quite a thing to have to deal with. Still, if I had to do an entire run with just Hunter, never pick up another crest... Well, actually, no. Every single one of these crests has a gimmick, and this one's gimmick, you actually need to get other crests to unlock. It's this sort of like building up of focus where like the more consecutive attacks you do where you're not hit, you get an increase in damage. I did try that. I did use that. It didn't seem to have a huge impact, not like the critical hit for the Wanderer crest did, but I mean, it is something. If I had to do an entire run just with the fully upgraded Hunter crest, I think I would be doing fine. I am going to put it in A tier, because it is a very usable, very good crest. And next up, we got Reaper, which actually was my main for my entire first run-through of Silksong. I was using Reaper probably about 80% of the entire first run-through. For most of the bosses, only a couple of the bosses, once I got Reaper, did I not use Reaper for. And I think I've heard people describe this as like playing the game with training wheels, and I mean, that's not entirely true, but I do understand where they're coming from. It is a very user-friendly type of crest. The main thing that appeals to me about Reaper is the range, because the bigger your range is, the further away from what you're hitting you can be and still land the hit. Yes, it is slower, but you can account for that. I forgot to mention this before. The 3 attacks that most define what the crest feels like in each moveset are the down air, the charge attack, and the dash attack. The charge attack and the dash attack for Reaper are not very good. They don't have huge range, especially compared to the other similar attacks in the other crests. But the down air, the pogo, this is the most forgiving pogo in the game. And I'm a very pogo happy sort of Silksong player. So yeah, I use that all the time. It's this big, gigantic downward arc that has huge range. The main gimmick for Reaper is the fact that once you bind, you get into a state for a few seconds where every single time you use it and you hit an enemy, more silk comes out in these little orbs that float in the air, so you can get more silk, so you can bind it again faster. I am the type of player that uses the needle, and when I use silk, I mostly use it for healing, so that is very helpful. Reaper is a very, very user-friendly one, and yes, I am a lowly Reaper stan. Reaper is my favorite crest. I'm putting it at the top of S tier. And nextly, we got Wanderer Crest. I've heard a lot of people say that this is just sort of like the moveset from Hollow Knight, copy and pasted into Silksong. And while that's not entirely true, I do see where they're coming from with that. Wanderer is a great crest. It is a very, very good one. Even in my first playthrough, it is one that I used a lot. There were a few bosses where I couldn't use Reaper all that well, and I would go with Wanderer instead. One of the bosses I had such a hard time with in my first run through was Lace, the second time you see her, and I ended up using Wanderer to beat her. So yes, Wanderer is a great crest. The main thing it has, defining it, is the fact that the strikes are shorter range, but very fast. And normally I would rather the Reaper thing, where it's high range and slower, but still it is workable, especially when you get the Long Claw upgrade. Then suddenly it becomes a lot more viable. The gimmick with this one is the critical hit. It is very handy when it comes up, but it doesn't really come up that often. Overall, this is certainly the least obtrusive gimmick of all of these. I would say out of all the crests in the game, Wanderer is the most no frills, no nonsense sort of crest. The most just standard, this is all your skills type of crest. And I think it's really good. The main issue I have with Wanderer involves the slots. We haven't even talked about those yet. But normally, both Hunter and Reaper, once you fully max out the kit, have, I believe, 1 white tool, 2 red, 2 yellow, and 2 blue. And then in addition to 1 extra blue and yellow tools on the side. Wanderer only has 1 red tool slot, 2 blue, and 3 yellow. And out of all the different tool types, I'd say that yellow is the one that I care the least about. The ones that I care the most about are the blue tools, and red tools follow after that. So it is certainly a problem that there's only 1 red tool slot, especially because you can't add more, no matter what other upgrades you get. And even if we're not talking about versatility, the different red tools can do different things, there's also just the fact that you have less tools to throw out total, when it comes to ammo capacity. But that is a problem. It's not a huge problem, but that is a problem. So even though this is a great tool design, I'm going to put it up in S tier after Reaper. Reaper is still my favorite crest. However, with all 3 that we talked about so far, Hunter, Wanderer, and Reaper, I could use only this crest for an entire run through, and it would be pretty good. That is not the case with the next one, the Beast Crest. I am a Beast Crest hater. I know there are Beast Crest defenders out there, even some Beast Crest advocates. I do not understand you people. I'm a Beast Crest hater. I know something has to go in D tier, and it is going to be the Beast Crest. It is just... It's rough using the Beast Crest. The biggest issue, just from looking at it, is the fact that there are no blue tool slots for the crest itself. You would need to only be able to use one extra blue tool slot, and that would be like the additional ones on the side. So at most you can use one blue tool with this crest, and I think that blue tools are the most important type. So that's a huge knock against it. But that's honestly not even the worst of it. First of all, less of a problem, but more something you need to account for is the fact that you can't heal normally with the Beast Crest. You have to activate it, and then within a certain length of time, I believe without getting hit, you need to attack other enemies and you take life from them. That's really not that hard to deal with, and in something like a gauntlet or a boss battle, that's not that difficult to use, but for just general walking around, that is a problem, that you can't just heal wherever you want, even if you have enough silk. Because if you, like, bind and you don't use it, you just wasted all that silk. But I really think much more than that, it is the moveset itself that is such an issue I have with Beast Crest. The downward aerial, the pogo, is awful. It is incredibly slow. It barely goes downwards at all. It feels more like a forward aerial attack instead of a downward aerial attack. It is just not a user-friendly pogo. The charge attack is also extremely slow, and it launches you forward. A lot of these attacks launch you forward, so you need to account for that every single time you use it. And the dash attack is also incredibly slow and launches you forward. I have used Beast Crest for a few different boss battles. Probably the most notable one I used it for in my second playthrough was the second Sentinel. And yeah, it did work. It was just really clunky and hard to get used to. If I had to do an entire run through using only Beast Crest, that would be rough. I don't even know how I would be able to do stuff like Journey to the Surface using Beast Crest. I'm sure other people have done it. No, I have seen a video of someone else doing that, but it was marketed on the assumption that this would be very difficult to use for like really delicate, tricky platforming. And yeah, it does. You could actually use the Delver's Drill if you wanted to, but that's using up a red tool slot. So overall, I am not a huge fan of that. And nextly, we got the Witch Crest. Witch Crest, I'm kind of torn on, because if you're just looking at the moveset itself, Witch has the best one out of all of them overall. They're all really big, they're all really quick, they're all very intuitive. Witch Crest has the best dash attack out of all of them. And I used the Witch Crest in my second fight against First Sinner, and that was really good, because that's one that, where you really need to be running up and attacking, and that is a really quick, really big, very safe dash attack. But then you get the healing thing, where you need to use the tentacles or vines or whatever they are to leech life away from your enemies, and that is the worst thing about Witch Crest. It's actually, like, I will give Beast Crest credit. It is easier to heal with Beast Crest than it does for Witch, because at least you have a few opportunities to try to hit your opponents, and you don't just get one shot, and they have to be still for a brief moment, which is not always going to happen. However, the moveset itself is a lot more user-friendly than Beast Crest, and also the, I keep wanting to say Charm. The tool layout is a lot better. They use, I think it was 3 blues and 2 reds, which is a lot better than 2 reds and 2 yellows as the base. So even though there is a certain like problem with using Witch, where it's very difficult to heal, so you kind of just have to get hit less when you're using Witch, overall that does make it a lot more user-friendly than Beast Crest, but still not something I would love having to spend an entire run doing. I think I'm going to go with B, because that is a very good moveset and a very usable moveset. And that brings us to Architect. This is something that a lot of the like speedrunners online love using, because that has 3 red tool slots. And yes, like, again, even if you're not considering like the versatility of the different types of tools you could use, that just means you have a lot more tools to throw out. However, I'm not a huge tool user. I'm not a huge tool enjoyer. If we're talking about ways to deal damage, where you got like the needle, and then you got the silk skills, and then you got the tools, I would use them in that order. The red tools would go last. I also really don't like having to go around getting rosaries and shell pieces in order to get that, so not my favorite. But I think even more of a problem than that is the moveset itself on the needle. It's all slow. It is all pretty well ranged, but it's slow. And the downward air, the pogo, there are two of them, and they're both not very good. There's the fast one, which is still very slow, and then you got the slow one, which is incredibly slow. It's huge, but it's very long to come out. I did use Architect on a few of the different bosses. The Unraveled, Nyleth was probably, like, this is the boss battle that's made for the Architect Crest Nyleth, because pretty much the only way you can hit them is hit Nyleth is either when she comes over to your side of the stage, you like downward pogo on top of her, or you fire off tools because there's no floor for most of the boss fight. However, I really don't love using the Architect Crest. I don't really care about like that sort of like damage per second speedrunning type of stuff that a lot of people think of with when they're talking about like how to optimize your crest experience. For me, it's like I can take my time. I don't really care if it takes a while as long as it gets it done. I would put it above the Witch Crest. I am torn between A and B. I'm just talking about when I'm thinking about like what it gravitates towards, it's not Architect though. So I am going to ultimately put it in B tier above Witch, but I am going to put it in B tier because it's not something I would really like advocate for. And lastly, we got Shaman Crest, which is a Act 3 exclusive crest. So that means you don't have a lot of opportunity to really test it out. And I actually realized that at the end of my second run through, I hadn't really put Shaman Crest to the test. The only boss I could recall using Shaman Crest on was Pale Stag, which barely counts as a boss. So I decided to go try and beat Lost Lace with Shaman Crest, and I did, and it made me realize this moveset is great. It's all huge. The only thing about the moveset that I don't like is the dash attack. It's oddly slow and small, considering how big most of the other attacks are. But it is such a good moveset because every single attack is huge. Like the upwards attack, the downwards attack, the forward, the charge especially, it's all gigantic, which means it's a lot easier to hit your opponent and not get hit yourself. There is the fact that you can't use any red tools at all with Shaman Crest, and that is an issue. And there also is the fact that it's encouraging you to use more silk skills, which uses a lot of the silk that you would normally use to heal. And there's also the fact that you can only heal when you're on the ground. If you try to heal in the air, it will make you go down to the ground, which certainly can be a problem. It didn't seem to be that big of a problem. I only ever used it for Lost Lace. However, that is a boss battle, and I'd imagine for general traversal or even like, or especially like gauntlets where there's a bunch of enemies coming at you at once, that would be an issue. As to how it would feel to use Shaman Crest for an entire run, I'd say that would actually really be a problem in something like the Choral Tower, because tools are really helpful during gauntlets, and being able to heal really quick in the air is also very helpful for gauntlets. But the moveset is so good with Shaman Crest, I think I'm going to put it up in A tier beneath Hunter. So this is my final Crest tier list. We got up at the top, we got Reaper, down at the bottom we got Beast, and this is, I think, ordered among the tiers. Should Shaman go above Hunter? No, it's not. Hunter, I think, is more versatile. And this is my ranking of these crests. And now we got the areas. This is definitely not going to be as in-depth as the crest, because in that one there was a lot more to talk about. With this one, again, I'm going to try to take everything into consideration, like the vibes, the art style, the music, the enemies, what's there. But this is going to be a lot more like vibe-based and like empirical evidence-based. But we're going to get started with Mosslands. This includes the Moss Grotto and Bone Bottom, and the part next to it, I think it's called Bone Grave. It's not as cozy as Dirtmouth, but Bone Bottom is a good home base. And it is a safe zone, except for that one time the Skull Tyrant comes barreling in, and I will say, that was a huge jump scare for me. Like, I actually screamed. I went like, ah! When that happened, and like, it scared the hell out of my family members that were in the house and heard me say that. Let's see, when you're talking about like overall quality of life, It is just sort of like functional at best. There really isn't a lot there. I guess there is stuff with Moss Home, but that still isn't all that interesting. There is stuff with Moss, with the Moss Grotto, and it is a good way to start, but I'd say overall it is very average when you look at the whole thing, so I think I'm going to leave it in B tier. The Marrow. If Mosslands is like Dirtmouth, then the Marrow is like the Forgotten Crossroads. It's the first major area you go to. It does show you a lot of the stuff that you're going to expect in Farloom. It has the lava, it has those weird platforms that like spawn and respawn when you land on top of them. What does it have in terms of bosses? It has the Bell Beast, is the introduction of Bell Beast. That's pretty cool. It's where you first meet Sherma. That's fun, but overall, it also just kind of feels like it's just sort of there. Am I going to leave it in B tier or change? You know, I'm going to leave it in B tier. And now we got Deep Docks. Deep Docks is very interesting. There certainly is a lot more happening in Deep Docks than there is in Mosslands or the Marrow. I'd say that it would go higher up, probably A tier. There is more there. And there's also the thing that you get to in Act 3 with like the bell. I am very glad that in my first playthrough, I did all that in Act 2, so I didn't have to deal with avoided enemies, because there are some pretty annoying enemies in Deep Docks, specifically the ones with the giant diving helmets that fire basically bombs at you. Those are very annoying to deal with. Hunter's March. Oh my gosh, Hunter's March is such a meme now, because this is something you get very early in game, and if you try to do it very early in game, especially if you haven't played these types of games before. I have played obviously the original Hollow Knight as well as Nine Souls before this, but even on my first playthrough, it was difficult to deal with. Thinking about Hunter's March, it certainly does feel less welcoming or rewarding to go to than a lot of the other ones. You have to deal with it if you want to do Act 3, but if you just end at Act 2, you don't actually have to go here at all. There is a lot of stuff here, but it's a lot of stuff that's very hidden. It does give you the Beast Crest, but that's still not like a huge like plus, so I'm torn. I think I'm going to go with C. Farfields, this is a great area. It's huge, it has a bunch there, there's a lot of stuff to do. I really like the music in Farfields. That's great too. There's a lot to visit. There's all the stuff that you get into Act 3 with the Scar Tribe. There's also a bunch of the lava stuff. You get to fight against Fourth Chorus here. I would say that Farfields might be our first S tier. I'm torn between A and S. I would say that probably it would be, because this is one of the coolest areas in the game. Greymoor is also great. I think Greymoor is also going to be an S tier. I'm not ordering these. There probably will be a number 1 best and number 1 worst. So I would say that Greymoor is also up at the same level of Farfields. I thought that Greymoor was going to be like this game's City of Tears. Ultimately, I think the Choral Chambers would be like the City of Tears of Silksong more than this does, but it does have that same sort of gloomy vibe, except the main difference between Farloom in this game and Hollownest in the first game is that Hollownest was completely dead. Like, there's no chance of ever getting this kingdom back. You're just finishing the job and letting this place rest in peace. With Farloom, there is still very much something going on here. And with Greymoor, you get all the workers that are like catching the silk that comes down from the Citadel and respooling it. And that's when we really start to get a feeling of, you got a bit of it in Deep Docks, but you only really see that mostly in the area behind that like gate with a lock. But in Greymoor, you actually really do see the effects of what the Citadel is doing, what the haunting is doing. So that's really cool. You get to see all the craws, which is, I don't think they're based on any real bugs. They're based off birds. But the craws, they are cool, like, in that way. I would say it definitely earns S tier. Bellhart. Bellhart, I think, is like an upgraded version of Mosslands, because there isn't really a lot there besides one of the towns in the game, but it is a lot cooler. You also get the Bellveins. Those are pretty cool to go around, and you also fight Widow here, which is one of the best boss battles in the game. Spoiler for later in the video. So, yeah, I'd say that Bellhart probably does go in A tier. I wouldn't say S tier because there's not really that much there, but whatever. Shellwood. Shellwood is certainly, like, it has a lot to explore there. A lot of cool enemies, a lot of cool NPCs, a lot of cool areas. But the enemies are a lot more annoying here than Farfield or Greymoor. So am I going to deduct an entire tier for that? I mean, there is the thing with Greyroot. Greyroot is a very important character. Sister Splinter's here. Are there any other big bosses in Shellwood besides Sister Splinter? I can't think of any, so there can't really be any noticeable. I'll get back to that. The more I look at it, the more I think that this doesn't have like the cool things in it as much as Farfields or Greymoor, so I'm going to put it in A tier. It is so good, but it's not great. Wormways. This is a I don't really like going here. There isn't a lot here. There's probably the most notable thing here is the whole like plasmium thing in Act 3, but it is very annoying getting around here. I almost want to put this in like D tier, like bottom tier, because the enemies there are very annoying. It's hard to navigate. It's not like very interesting. And the only boss battle there, Plastified Zango, is one of the most underwhelming in the game. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that in D tier. Weave Nest Atla. When I look at this, I think I see Weave Nest Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is more of like a secret area, except it's not really all that secret. You kind of do end up going here if you're doing the Act 3 secret ending. So it is technically a required place. It does have a cool vibe. It does feel like you're stepping back in time. Does that really like help it all that much, or is it still just kind of average? Eva is an interesting character. Technically, those two Moss Mothers are part of Weave Nest Atla. I think it's still just B tier though. It's not great. It's just kind of there. Sinner's Road. I'd say out of all the areas that have the muck maggots, this is the least annoying to walk around. But it also has the muck roaches, and it has those two types of flying enemies. And it has all those spikes, and it has the one main bench that you need to unlock by breaking down a part of the wall and going through all of that. It's not super fun to go through. It does have sticks, and there is a different type of entrance you can get there that allows you to go right to there and get some Silk Eaters. And Silk Eaters are very useful because there are so many times where I lost so many rosaries because I couldn't get to that cocoon in time, and those Silk Eaters are very helpful in a pinch. I still don't really like going around Sinner's Road. The main boss there is the Disgraced Chef Lugoli, which I think is a pretty funny boss, but not super memorable. I think I'm going to put this down in C tier. Bilewater. Okay, Bilewater has gotten a reputation for being the worst area in Silksong. I don't agree. That doesn't mean it's good. I'm going to put this down in D tier. Bilewater is kind of miserable going around. The constant muck maggots, the enemies are very annoying, the traps everywhere. It's not as bad as this game gets, but it is not fun. The main boss in Bilewater is obviously Girl the Great. But there are a lot of really cool things you can pick up there. The Weave Nest with the gun, that is part of Bilewater. That's where you get the Twisted Bud, the first quest, and it's also really good in terms of lore because this is a very solid place where you can see the effect of the Citadel on the surrounding ecosystem, and it's very understandable why the Stiltkins hate the Citadel so much. Because this place used to not be disgusting. It used to be like a normal swamp, and then they're just dumping their waste into it and destroying it. So yeah, I can understand why Girl the Great has a chip on his shoulder concerning the Citadel. That doesn't mean that this place is really any fun to go through. The exhaust organ is pretty cool, but I almost don't consider that to be part of Bilewater, even though it technically is. The Mist. I mean, the Mist is sort of like a one and done kind of thing. You're just in there, you're out. The Wraiths are pretty annoying. I'm trying to think, is there anything good about it, or is there only the neutral to negative things? I can't think of anything. There are the traps everywhere. There is the cool thing with those little butterflies, but yeah, no, I think it's gonna go to C tier. The Blasted Steps. This place is, I knew when I saw those sandworms chomping at the pits to eat you, I knew I wasn't gonna love it there. There certainly is some great atmosphere in the Blasted Steps. I love the music. That was the first area theme where I was walking around, I was wait, this music is actually pretty good. Overall, I think that probably the soundtrack to Silksong is more consistent than the one to Hollow Knight, but it doesn't have the high highs that the one in Hollow Knight does, in my opinion. But I did notice the music in Blasted Steps. The just traversal in Blasted Steps is not very fun. There's a lot of very annoying enemies here. I'm trying to think. I think I'm gonna put this lower. Like, I don't love walking around blasted steps. I don't like those sandworms. Grand Gate, this doesn't count. There's nothing here. Grand Gate it's a sham. It's like, it's fake. It's like it's like that thing in cartoons where like they draw like a tunnel into a wall and you just crash into it. It's a trick. Like canonically, the pilgrims would go in through that big door and then they would get shipped right down to the underworks. So yeah, there's nothing there. It's like one room, so barely anything. Underworks is very unpleasant, but I don't think it's like as unpleasant as some of the other ones. I think I'm going to put it in C tier because it's still not fun. This is the only place in the game where you have to pay in order to use the benches, which canonically does make sense because everybody's treated poorly by the Citadel, who's not like super rich, but like the people in Underworks, those are treated the worst. Loam is such a sad character. Seeing all the workers who are just like, I'm pretty sure most of them are dead. Most of them are just like zombified husks controlled by the Haunting. So that is bad. The enemies are kind of annoying. You got the flying ones that throw stuff at you or like do that saw blade spinny thing and fly at you. Overall, Underworks is not that fun. There are some cool things that you can pick up. This is where you get the claw line. This is where you technically get the Architect's Crest. But overall, Underworks is not the best. Choral Chambers. This is what ended up being, I think, the City of Tears of Silksong. I am going to put this up in S tier because there is so much to do. This is a huge area. Actually, I think that Bilewater is technically bigger when it comes to span, but there's just so much to do in the Choral Chambers. The music is great. The music is like off kilter because it has 3-bar phrases, and that's like, when you listen to it, you feel like it keeps like starting and stopping on itself. I think that Choral Chambers is one of the best areas in Silksong. When I'm looking at the list of everything that's there, I still think that there is one better than Choral Chambers, and one that I do think deserves the number one more, and that is Cogwork Core. I think that Cogwork Core is the best area in Silksong just in general. I really like the traversal. It's a lot of fun. I love the music. The music is great. There's a lot of fun stuff to do here. It's small, it's not super intensive, but like everything it does do, it does really, really well. I think I'm going to give Cogwork Core the best area in Silksong. Whispering Vaults. The enemies here are very annoying. I don't like any of the enemies here. I don't really like any of the enemies at all, really, but like, there can be like challenging without being super obtrusive. All the enemies here are annoying. Those spiders, the vault keepers, I don't like them. Those little like nerd student ones where you go into the classroom and they all like wake up and like flood the area, they're annoying. The ones that throw lamps at you are annoying. It's not great in Whispering Vaults. Some of the areas are pretty cool you can go to. Overall, I would say that, especially considering how good most of the stuff in the Citadel is, Whispering Vaults is kind of mid. I'm gonna give it a B tier. White Ward. This is probably the closest thing to Deep Nest in this game because, especially when you learn what they did in White Ward and what's going on in White Ward, it's horrifying. But just like on face value, you go there and it's like Silent Hill. Like, you know something awful is happening. Anyone here is like a zombified husk. It's where the Unraveled is, which from like a lore standpoint is probably the scariest boss in the entire game. White Ward, however, there really isn't that much to do there. It does have probably my most used tool, which is like those injection needles. That is where it is. I think probably just based on aura alone, it does coast up to A tier. The Slab. I gotta say, I don't really like those like parts in the video games where you lose all your items and all your abilities and you have to like try to get them back. That is what happens in the Slab. You get to see Naked Hornet for a while, and that is... it just looks wrong to me. I'm way too used to seeing Hornet with that cloak, with the kicking. But if you're talking about it after that part, where you just get to explore normally, there certainly is a lot to do in the Slab. You got the Broodmother side quest, and you have the fight with the first Sinner, which is one of the better boss battles in the game. I'm trying to think, because like, there's a lot of gross areas in Farloom, like Sinner's Road and Bilewater. The Slab is pretty gross too. I'm torn between B and A. I think I'm going to settle on B tier. Mount Fae. Mount Fae is probably one of the biggest like challenges when it comes to platforming they give you in the game, because until you get the Fade Down Cloak, you actually are on a timer, because if you stay out in the cold for too long, you'll die. And that is certainly something that is a problem, but it's like a manageable challenge. It's not super annoying like some of the other challenges. It is like a really cool area. I do enjoy going around it. It's difficult to traverse, but difficult in a fun way. I would give Mount Fae like an A. Memoriam. Memoriam is just kind of like, okay. It is cool that you get to see like different exhibits of the different areas of Farloom, but it's not really anything special in my opinion. I think that B tier is a good place for it. High Halls. High Halls is an interesting area because this is where like the upper caste of the Citadel lived, the conductors. That's where you find the ministers, the maestros, which I assume are like the richer types. That is where you find that giant vault where you get the rosary cannon, which I never even used once. That's the reason why I'm not doing red tools at tier list there, because I didn't use all the tools enough to really get a feel for any of them. Why would I ever want to use the rosary cannon? I always need rosaries. You never not need rosaries in this game, so why would you ever want to fire them at your enemies? This is where the biggest gauntlet in the game is. That's basically like the Colosseum of Fools in this game. Getting around is pretty annoying because the ministers especially are such an annoying enemy, and they always follow you around. I feel like still it does eventually get to B tier though. Sands of Karak is, I think, a strict upgrade on the Blasted Steppes, because there's more of an identity to it. This is the place where the Choral Kingdom once was, and it's where you have all the stuff having to do with Crusting Khan and his kingdom. It's where you get to see the Watcher at the Edge. I do think that it is better. Is it like A tier better? Well, it does have Volt Nest in it as well. That's a pretty cool place. Yeah, I'm gonna put it up in A tier. Wisp Thicket. It's small. There isn't a lot there, but what it does try to do, it does do very well. The fire magic. This is where Father of the Flame is, which is one of the most unique bosses in the game. There isn't a lot here, but what it does pretty well. I'm feeling generous. I'll give this A tier. Putrefied Ducks. This is the worst area in Silksong. I hate every time I have to go to this place. This place sucks. I hate it. Anybody who says that Bilewater is worse than Putrefied Ducks have drunk the Kool-Aid. This shouldn't even be an argument. Putrefied Ducks is the worst area in Silksong. Not only do you have the muck maggots, and it's hard to navigate, all three of the enemies that you find here are some of the worst in the game. The Ducksuckers are these big giant tanks that block your way everywhere. Those flies, the spit squits I think they're called, that is this game's primal aspid. It's not those craws that throw the knives. It's not even those, I think they're called termites that spit like fire at you. It's these. These are the fire stuff at you then fly away, like equivalent in this game. And then you have those snare traps that you can't even kill. Like, you can hit them and they go away, but then they come back. There is nothing here. The only thing that you really get in Putrefied Ducks is Fleetopia. If it didn't have that, it would have nothing. Yeah, it does have the Wreath of Purity, and it does have the key to the first sinner, but like, it still makes it really hard and annoying to go there. Putrefied Ducks is the worst area in the game. I will fight you on that. It is not Bilewater. The Cradle. I mean, with the Cradle, there's not really a lot here. It's mostly just the Grandmother Silk battle. You do get there pretty early because Terminus is technically part of the Cradle, but there really isn't like a lot to do here. There is some lore, but overall it's kind of underwhelming. Lost Verdania. This is a pretty area. Like, it's great. The enemies are like, it's late game. This is a late game area, so they are pretty difficult to deal with. Some of the navigation is a little hard to deal with, but like the aesthetic is really good. The colors are really good. The music's pretty good. I'm going to bring this up to A tier. And lastly, the Abyss. There isn't really a lot to do in the Abyss besides just like get the stuff you need and then leave, but it does have the final boss. I think I'm going to leave this in B tier. And yeah, that is the final ranking of the areas. It's not ordered within the tiers, but I do believe that my favorite is Cogwork Core. My least favorite is Putrefied Ducks. Send it. And lastly, we got the main one, which is the boss ranking. There are a lot of bosses in this game, but there are a few I'm not going to be considering. The Craggler, Huge Flea, Choir Clapper, this thing that was in Steel Soul mode, I'm not considering any of them. And also, this is going to be a lot quicker or else we're going to be here all day. The Moss Mother, the first time you see it. And this is the first boss in the game, pretty good introduction, but still overall it's very underwhelming. I'm going to give this an E tier. The Bell Beast. For some reason, in my first playthrough, I had a lot of trouble with this one. It took me like maybe 10 tries. But in the second one, I blew through it on the first try, so I don't know. It does unlock your primary means of transportation, and you do form a pretty good bond with the Bell Beast throughout the game. I would say that probably belongs in like B tier. Lace the first time. This is a pretty good introduction to Lace's character. And I realized that Lace's appearance in this game kind of mirrors the way that Hornet appeared in Hollow Knight. She starts out as like a very early game boss, like sort of like, this isn't a wild animal coming after you, this is like an actual character who like wants to challenge you. And then there's a skill check later in the game with this. I would say this is a pretty good introduction, but still it's nothing spectacular. I'm gonna give it B. Fourth Chorus. This is the first really cool feeling boss battle in this game. There's some good lore behind Fourth Chorus, but even like on face value, it's pretty good. I'm gonna give it an A. Moss Mother Duo. I did this a little bit late in the game. I remember using Beast Crest and it was okay, but still it's not really much better than the normal one on its own, so here we go. I forgot to mention, I'm also going to try to take everything into consideration, the difficulty, the music, the aesthetic, the run back where it's applicable, so I will be mentioning that. I also didn't realize that they included this guy as a boss. This should not count as a boss, it's a normal enemy. Morwing. A lot of people had trouble with Morwing. The first time I did it, it was by myself. It didn't take me that long for what I can remember. It wasn't easy, but whatever. The second time I had Garmond and Zaza, so that was a lot easier. Morwing is certainly a memorable boss because you like, if there's a good build up to it, you see Morwing flying around throughout Greymore when you approach. And you actually do see him like later on in the game because he's being roasted and eaten during the Flea Festival. Trying to think of just overall though, it's certainly not that fun to fight Morwing, so I think I'm going to put it in C tier though. Beastfly, the first time. This is a very annoying fight. It is very annoying to deal with. I don't really like dealing with this, but it's not the second time, so I think that puts it into E tier. Skull Tyrant, the first time. This kind of just feels like a large enemy. Probably the only thing you're going to have issue with is just how bulky it is, especially for where you're going to face it in the game. It's just kind of tedious to fight. It just runs back and forth. There isn't really much thought to it. So yeah, and arguably the second time is even worse because at this point you are well equipped to deal with this thing, so it's not even a challenge at any stretch of the imagination. Sister Splinter. I waited a week to play this because I knew that there were going to be some patches right at the beginning, and I'm glad I did. Apparently, in the original build of Silksong, Sister Splinter was way overtuned. I didn't experience that at all. She was fairly easy to deal with. There was the idea with like the body blocking thing, which does happen a fair amount with her. I remember that was a big problem with my Pure Vessel boss fight because like he would stumble and fall to the ground, and that made him slam into me and kill me. That was so annoying. I did get some little bits of that with Sister Splinter. Overall, it just kind of felt okay. I'm going to put it in C tier, I guess. The Raging Conch Flies. This felt okay, but it also just felt like a larger enemy. The fact that there were two of them was a little bit interesting, but I'd say that there was actually more in the second boss battle to deal with, so probably D tier. It was just kind of whatever. Widow. This is the first really good boss in the game, and also the first really difficult boss in the game. This is the one where you have to know their attack patterns. You have to know what every tail looks like. You have to know how to dodge if you're going to win. Widow was a really, really good boss, like just comically campy evil. It was a lot of fun to deal with. I love the music as well. The Last Judge. The Last Judge is a pretty big skill check, because it is not easy. It's a lot like Traitor Lord from Hollow Knight, where every single attack does an insane amount of damage, and there's rarely ever any time to heal, so you kind of just can't get hit. Especially if you don't have the Magma Bell, all the fire attacks are going to be insane to deal with. The run back is pretty bad, and you're going to go through that run back several times. Is that enough to really downgrade how fun this boss is to fight when you're actually there? I don't know. I think I'm ultimately going to put this in A tier because it is a really cool boss battle, and it is a really good ending to Act 1. It's certainly a lot better than the fight against Phantom, or not even the fight, just like everything about the alternate entrance to the Citadel is so underwhelming compared to going through the Grand Gate and the Blasted Steps. So yeah, Cogwork Dancers. Maybe this is basic, maybe this is cliche, but honestly I think that Cogwork Dancers is the best boss in the entire game. None of them are as well executed as this one. None of them tell a story. Okay, maybe not none of them. I don't know what would top it. Maybe I'll learn when I get there, but it's the Cogwork Dances. It's like the Mantis Lords of this game. It's just so well executed. The idea of it. The music is great. They move in time with the music. And that one last phase where you got the one Cogwork dancer just miserably dancing on its own, that is a really nice touch, and they didn't have to add that. They could have just given them like one health bar. Trobio. Certainly a very hammy character. I think that this was a lot of fun. I love the theatrical aspect of it, and this is the part where it doesn't feel super dangerous. This isn't someone that actually wants you dead, even though they will kill you, and you don't actually kill him if you defeat him. He just like plays dead. I think that Trobio was a lot of fun. The music is great too. So I'm going to put this in A tier. The Unraveled. This is certainly one of the more disturbing bosses in the game. It is kind of annoying because I think that the main way that I get damage in fighting the Unraveled is just how huge the hitbox is. Like the body hitbox. With the dashing from side to side, like the corner will get you a lot. I would say that overall it is an okay boss battle. It's not great. It is very out of the way. I didn't even know this boss existed for my entire first run through of the game, though. And Grohl the Great. This might be a hot take. This is not the worst boss in the game. It is not. It's not fun, but it's not the worst boss in the game. The run back is bad, but it's not the worst run back in the game either. However, it's still not fun fighting Grohl the Great. The hitbox is huge. A lot of the attacks are hard to deal with. Considering how huge Grohl the Great is and how small the room is, there isn't a lot of place to maneuver. I'm going to put it in F tier because it's not fun fighting Grohl the Great. My first run through, I actually didn't even fight him. I just cheesed him by hanging out in the maggot water. But my second run through, I actually did like beat him in a more honest way. It wasn't very much fun. I was very happy when it was over. First Sinner. This is another great boss battle in the game. This is like right in between Widow and Grandmother Silk. And there's a great way to tell just from like the gameplay that they're all connected. They're all like weavers. This is a boss battle that breaks the number one rule that you learn in these games, which is that you can't just run in. You need to take your time. The problem is, this is the one where if you're not aggro, if you're not constantly running up and hitting it, because she can heal, you're not going to be able to win. You have to keep running at her. You need to keep applying the pressure, or else she's just going to heal and you're not going to get anywhere. I ended up using Witch Crest in my second playthrough to fight First Sinner, and that was actually really good for Witch Crest because of that. It has a great dash attack. Now, there's also the idea of, is First Sinner, like, really evil, or is she just testing you to see if you're worthy of getting her skill? I would probably lead more towards the latter. I would say that First Sinner is supposed to serve as kind of like a foil to Widow. Widow is fully on the side of Grandmother Silk. She's evil. She wants to extend the haunting. I would think it's more likely that First Sinner actually does want Hornet to finish the job that she tried to start all those years ago. Savage Beastfly's second one. This is the worst boss in the game. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate those flying things that spit acid or fire at you. I hate the fact that this stage keeps getting smaller. This is one where I will get hit over and over and over, and I will run out an entire health bar in 10 seconds and I'll die. I hate the second fight with Savage Beastfly. If there wasn't a mass shard as a reward, I would want to skip this. I hate it. That is the worst boss in the game. It is way worse than Grohl the Great. The second one with Lace. I remember this being really difficult in my first playthrough. I was sweating because she knows how to bait you, and there's a lot of mix-ups here. I think it's one of the better boss fights in the game. The arena is gorgeous. The moveset is great. It's tough but fair. It is a really good skill check. It's more of a skill check than Grandmother Silk. I'm going to put it probably in S tier. Speaking of which, Grandmother Silk, I would say is a very cool boss. Not as cool as Lace the second time. And yeah, it makes sense that she's not the final boss because she's not that difficult. It is like, it does feel very grand. It does feel like a spectacle, but she kind of just like stands there and lets the shears do the work for her. Except for that claw swipe and the giant like web that gets weaved. That is a 3 mask attack. I think that might be the only 3 mask attack in the entire game. The music is pretty good. I would say that A tier is a pretty good spot for Grandmother Silk. Phantom. In my first playthrough, I managed to defeat Phantom on my first try while using my Switch 2 as a handheld, so I thought this was just kind of easy, but on my second playthrough, where I actually entered the Citadel through Sinner's Road and the Mist, it was a lot more difficult. She is so fast. Like, that is the main thing that's difficult with her. She is so fast. It's hard to pin her down. She has a lot of attacks. It's hard to get a hit in, but it is a pretty cool boss battle, and her music is pretty good. I think I'm going to put it in B tier. Ooh, Father of the Flame. This is certainly the most unique boss in the game because it doesn't move, and it also doesn't give you any silk. It's literally just like a totem. Mostly it's just like, how good is your pogo? Oh my gosh, doing this with the Beast Crest would be miserable. Oh my gosh. This is definitely something where I would just like break out the Weaver Crest and just like hop on those little knot things, just hit it over and over. Overall, this is just kind of whatever. I think C tier is a pretty good place for it. Garamond and Zaza the first time. I actually didn't get to experience this in my first run through, so I did do it in the second run through, and it was okay. It's not really anything notable, though. I put it in D tier. The character is pretty endearing. I like that, but I think that there's another meeting with Garamond and Zaza that was a lot better. The Enraged Beastfly. I would put that in a tier above the original one because this one's mad that you killed its mate, and it's a lot more intensive with what you're doing. The Four Brothers. I do think it's pretty cool that there are 2 of them and they sort of interact independently. The fact that they keep throwing their lacquers at you is kind of interesting. I would say that this is like the defining boss of Deep Docks. I thought that was pretty good. I'm probably going to put this in B tier. Alright, Disgraced Chef Lugoli. These are Souls-like games. They are meant to be very grim and depressing. There aren't a lot of opportunities where any element of humor can even exist. In the first game, the only really funny boss I remember is Grey Prince Zote. And in the second game, I would say that probably Trobio is a more funny boss, but this one has an attack where it just throws its butt in your face, which, I mean, that is funny. I feel like this is like sort of like that like kids cartoon evil lunch lady sort of character, but the fight is kind of annoying. The arena is very small. The attacks are very basic, and the reward is just something that you can get for the feast quest. So probably doesn't fare that well overall. I'm gonna put it in D tier. The Brood Mother is disgusting and annoying, and I really don't enjoy fighting her very much. It's just annoying to deal with. There are hitboxes everywhere, the arena is tiny, and it's hard to like get in close. It is just not fun. Second Sentinel is, I think, an underrated boss battle. This is a great fight, because she has the thing that like Lace and some of the other bosses do, where like they know how to mix you up. There's some great mix-ups with her moveset. I would actually probably put this in S tier. This is great. The Bell Eater is such an annoying, difficult boss battle because not only is the arena very small, if you get too close to the walls are going to attack you. A lot of the attacks just feel like unavoidable damage with like, especially like the bouncing things, like how am I supposed to dodge that? You get cornered a lot. It's not a lot of fun, really. It's mostly just difficult than it is, like, rewarding. I would probably put it down at, like, D tier. I wouldn't really call it, like, bad, the way that some of these are just, like, not enjoyable at all, but it's not great. Tormented Trobio, round 2. I'd say is about as good as the first one. It is a lot more difficult, and certainly feels a little bit more unfair, especially with those fireworks. Like, that big giant X that takes up what feels like half the screen. It's very hard to avoid. But I do think it is a good follow-up to the original fight. Chakra. It's actually kind of surprising that she's not more annoying than she is, because her entire thing is, like, teleports behind you, throw something, teleports away. The only opportunity I ever even found in order to like throw things at her was when she does the thing where she like flies forward, creates an explosion, stops, and like throws something behind her, and like the 1/4 of a second between her throwing the ring and then teleporting away was when I was able to get the hit in. You have to get into a rhythm with this boss battle. You need to let her set the pace. But once you do, it's very rewarding to fight against her. The Crawfather. This was an interesting fight. It kind of just feels more like a gauntlet than anything else. The Craw enemies are kind of fun. I would say overall this is pretty average though. Plasmified Zango. Just from like a design standpoint, this is probably the worst boss in the game. It doesn't even feel like a boss. It's just like a stage hazard. It's not actively annoying like some of the ones at the bottom as much, because I used the pipette thing they gave you. So basically you just have to look for like an opportunity, because there's a really, really long wind up to using the item. If I actually had to do the thing where I just had to wail on him over and over and over so that the life goes down faster than the plasmium can like re-up it, that would probably be a nightmare. I don't want to experience that. I don't think I'm ever going to try to experience that. I think that F tier is a great place for Plasmified Zango. The Clover Dancers. I want to love it because it's a sequel to the Cogwork Dancers, but especially in my second playthrough, this is a lot more difficult and a lot more annoying than the Cogwork Dancers. The hitboxes are huge. Like, there are so many times where I didn't even think I would hit them, and suddenly I'm down 2 masks. Still, it is a very good follow-up to the Cogwork Dancers, even though it's not nearly as good. It's a nice way to wrap up the Green Prince character. I'm feeling generous. I'll put it in B tier. The Pale Stag. This barely feels like a boss battle, because like the only attack is those crescent things. It's not even difficult. It's just like testing your patience. As long as you don't like do something reckless and run up and attack all willy-nilly, you can do it. I could probably do an entire like fight against this thing without getting hit once. It would just take a while. Overall, very underwhelming, not very good. E tier. Crest King Khan. I have the same opinion about this one as pretty much everyone else does. The gauntlets are much more difficult than Crest King Khan. However, it's a really fun fight with him. It's more like he's creating like a different stage hazard every time. It doesn't even really feel like he's attacking you directly, but it's a lot to deal with those giant like pillars coming out from the walls. A lot of things to deal with. I think this is a fun fight. I like it a lot. Scarsinger Carmelita. When people talk about the best boss battle in this entire game, it's usually either Lost Lace, First Sinner, or Carmelita. And I'm inclined to agree. Definitely S tier. A great fight. This is one of those bosses where, as the phases go on, it's not even that the moves get more powerful or there are new moves. In the last phase, there is no breathing room. It's attack after attack after attack with no break in between. It feels like you're fighting against an actual person. And this, I think, is a great fight. The music is amazing in this one with the female voice, and the fact that the voice stops when you get her to stumble. I mean, there's also the fact that like she's like crying out in like battle cries and singing at the same time, so it's kind of hard to feel like she's actually singing while she's fighting you, but like symbolically, you know. I think that that's a great fight. Shrine Guardian Seth is another one of these really good like dual feeling ones, sort of like the second one against Lace or Chakra, but probably better. I don't know if it's S tier, but I can comfortably put it in A tier. This is like such a cool like fight design, and the story behind Seth as a character is great. I knew that this had to be named after somebody when I saw the name Seth, because like that's way too normal of a name for this game. Like this has to be like a backer or someone, and yes, there is the story of Seth, which is very sad, but hey, Seth is now immortalized in this game. Nyleth. Nyleth scared the hell out of me the first time I approached her. I was just walking up and suddenly it screeched at me, and that got me good. This is a very, very difficult boss battle in the fact that for like the second half of it, there's no floor and there's a lot to deal with, but it's mostly just like you have to take your time, because like most of the damage you would get is when you try to do something reckless. Overall, this is definitely my least favorite out of like the 4 Old Heart ones. I would probably put it in like D tier, to be honest. I did not enjoy my fight against Nyla. The Pinstress. I mean, she's funny. She's like she's like that anime trope of like the old man who seems very unassuming, but they're like super powerful, except I guess in this case, an old woman. You find her in Mountain Fae, she's like passed out, that's funny. It has probably the best boss battle music. Maybe not the best. It has one of the best songs in the entire game, Strive, as its battle music. I love that song. It's really great. I think that this is a really good fight. It feels like a duel, and there's a lot to deal with. It's tough, but fair. I think I'm going to put this in A tier. Gur, the Outcast. It actually kind of reminds me of Crust King Khan in the fact where it doesn't even feel like he's attacking you directly. He's just setting up traps. It's not as interesting, though. It's not as fun. I think at C is a pretty good place. Watcher at the Edge. This is the worst run back in the entire game. I ended up using the bench at the Pinstress's house, and that is a long way back. That is the worst run back in the game. Way worse than Last Judge, way worse than Gruul the Great. But the fight is, like, okay. I think I'm going to leave that in C tier as well. Lost Garmund. Oh, this was sad. Because, like, you thought that Garmund was going to make it, but, like, no, he fell to the void. Because, like, you saw him going around fighting the void creatures. Oh, man, that's sad. And the fact that, like, you're answering the help of Zaza, and Zaza is there, like staying with him while he dies, that's sad. It's a good moment, though. I'm probably going to put this in A or B tier. I think B tier feels best. And Voltworm, this kind of just feels like a stage hazard, because there isn't really much in the way of attack. It's kind of underwhelming. I think it belongs in the same tier. And lastly, Lost Lace. If I had to pick one, or like a serious answer, this is the best boss in the game, I think I'm ultimately going to say Lost Lace, because this is an amazing finale to Hollow Knight Silksong. And it's completely different in feel from the Radiance. Grandmother Silk felt more like the Radiance. This is more like a duel. And it is amazing. The music is like... It's like film score type of stuff. It's so good. It fits the moment so well. And the idea that this is not an enemy you want to take down. This is a rescue mission. It's Lace is lost. You're bringing her back. It is also the most difficult fight in the game. This took me multiple days. I have, at this point, defeated Lost Lace 3 different times using the Reaper, the Hunter, and finally the Shaman Crest. It is not easy at any crest. Oh my gosh, but wow, is this a satisfying fight. Lost Lace, if I had to pick, I would say that Lost Lace is the best battle in the game, which I guess is fitting for a final boss. And yeah, that is the final tier list. This is all very casual. It's just something I wanted to try out. Let me know if you have any disagreements in the comments below. Thank you for listening.